Welcome everyone to Design and Technology Product Design. It's also known as resistant materials. It's essentially the same thing. Product design is just a more modern name for it. Okay, so I'm going to spend the next few minutes just introducing you to the course and talking to you about the sort of things you're going to be studying in Year 10 and 11. Throughout the next 2 years, you are going to be learning the theory, so you're going to be building your knowledge on the different material areas that we use in DT, such as timber, metals, plastics or polymers as they're known, and also paper and board. You will be specialising in timber-based materials, so obviously your knowledge of the timber-based materials is going to be much sort of deeper, more detailed. And when I say timber-based materials, I mean softwood, hardwood, man-made board. Okay, so over Year 10, you're going to be doing a series of mini projects to prepare you for your coursework or non-examined assessment, NEA. This is going to be design and make projects similar to what you've done in Key Stage 3, where you're going to be developing your practical skills, applying the theory that you're learning, and sort of producing sort of different products. We're going to get you on CAD/CAM, so computer-aided design, computer-aided manufacture, where you're going to be doing inlay and etching. We're going to get you into the workshop as much as possible, where you'll be using all the tools and machines. You'll be looking at different wood joints, which I know you've touched on in Year 9, but obviously we'll be building on that knowledge that you already have. Veneer bending, so this is basically shaping wood, so it's not using a saw, it's building up thin layers of wood, gluing them together, clamping them in a former, and then when they dry, they retain that shape. We're also going to get you doing some pewter casting, and we will also demo sand casting, and we're also going to get you on the lathe, so some wood turning. Okay, now the main aim, the reason why we're doing all these mini projects is to prepare you for your NEA. Now you will start your NEA or coursework at the end of Year 10, and then you will take your exam at the end of Year 11. Your NEA is worth 50% of the course, and your exam is also worth 50%. So we will be preparing you really well for the NEA, and then also spending quite a bit of time on the NEA just to make sure you do as well as you can. Now, throughout Year 10 and Year 11, there will be end-of-term tests, which are just recapping the theory that we learned that term, preparing for your exam, getting you some practice with sort of exam-style questions, so that you can understand the terminology that the AQA uses, how to give more detailed answers, and again, preparing you for that exam at the end of Year 11. You will also have mocks in December of Year 11, which again is to sort of give you some experience taking exams in exam conditions and also getting used to the papers. Okay, so as I said before, in Year 10, you're going to be doing a series of mini projects, which are design and make projects. This is where you're going to be developing your practical skills using a variety of tools, machines, techniques, and also materials. You'll be applying the theory that you're learning and also ultimately preparing you for your coursework. Now, in terms of theory, it can be broken down in sort of 3 sections, and this is also how your exam will be laid out, which I'll talk to you about in the next slide. So the core principles, this is the general knowledge of all the material areas, their working properties. You'll also be learning about new and emerging technologies, energy generation and storage, developments in new materials, systems approach to design, electronic systems and mechanical devices. So you're covering quite a lot of subjects, but it is kind of quite broad knowledge, and also in the exam it will be a multiple choice. Now, there's also the specialist area, which, as I said before, is going to be timber-based materials you're going to be learning about. You're going to be sort of finding out where timber comes from, the processing involved, manufacturing, properties of the different timbers, scales of production, the different surface treatments and finishes we can use, forces and stresses, sustainability, so looking at those sort of wider issues, and also the 6 R's. Now, some of this sort of terminology you will recognise from Year 9, Year 8, Year 7. Don't worry if there's some new terminology. Obviously, when we start this course in September, I will go through each one quite detailed. And if at any point you've got any questions, please email me. At the end of the PowerPoint, there's my email, but you can also get hold of me on our Google Classrooms class and also show my homework. Okay, so the third part of the theory is designing and making, and this is also the third section in the exam. It's applying the skills that you learn and the knowledge that you're going to gain through completing the mini projects in year 10, but also your coursework, your non-examined assessment. So that third section in the exam is actually going to be helped by your coursework. So the coursework that you're going to be completing in year 10 and year 11 will also help prepare you for the exam at the end of year 11. Alright, so on this slide you can see quite a few different pictures. I'm going to talk you through it. Again, in September when we start the course, I will spend a little bit more time on these, and if you've got any questions you can either ask me or you can ask me then. So looking at the PowerPoint here, you can see there is sort of a nice tea light holder here that we'll use. This is sort of using a lathe for some wood turning. It's a honey dipper, but also, you might want to use a lathe in your NEA as well. This is some enamelling, so it's basically putting glass powder on copper, and then we've got a little furnace that the glass powder melts, producing glass. So if you want to add colour and texture to copper or inlay it in some wood, then obviously you could use that technique. Now above here, this is actually resin. So it's like a liquid resin that you mix and then you can pour into wood. So if you've got kind of like a rebate, and then obviously you need to leave the resin to cure. But again, if you want to add some sort of colour to wood, then you could do that. Here we have a game. Now, I've done this in year 10 before, and then also a sort of mini stall. Now, the idea or the aim of all the mini projects that we do is to build up confidence, get you to understand health and safety, and ultimately to just try out as many techniques as you can while learning about the sort of different wood and properties of wood. Now, probably what I will do actually at the end of year 10 is I will give you some examples of the sort of mini projects we've done, and actually give you the opportunity to kind of decide which ones you would like to do. Okay, so down in the bottom right is an example of veneer bending. So this is where students have made bracelets and sort of used thin layers of veneer, glued them up around a former, left them to dry, and then obviously that's how they retain that shape. Okay, now the two slightly larger photos to the left of the bracelets are sort of other examples of using veneer bending. So this is for the coursework, people's coursework, but you can see here how we've actually had to kind of make our own former or way of clamping the wood to get that sort of almost 90-degree angle there. This is also another example, and it was for some stools, which I'll show you in a future slide. So to get that kind of shape for a stool, this is how we got the shape. Okay, now all these are to do with casting. So this is pewter casting, where you make some moulds using a laser cutter, and then we heat the pewter, we pour it into the mould, and then when you separate it, you can see where the pewter's cooled, it retains the shape, and then you have your pewter casting. So these were some earrings, and this is a number, and I'll show you when I show you the pictures of different coursework examples, I will show you the pewter casting. And then these were sort of key rings that were made. So here is sand casting. So you've basically got to create the shape within the sand, and then we pour the aluminium in, and when it cools you can take it out and it obviously retains that shape. Now lastly, this was just some coasters, and these were actually pop art coasters where we practiced inlay, just to demonstrate inlay. And again, the idea is to give you as many techniques as possible, so that you are prepared for your coursework and exam, and then you can use these sort of techniques when you come to design your own product. Okay, so I have just touched on the coursework. It is worth 50% of your GCSE, as is your exam. You can see here it's out of 100 marks. You can see the hours approximately that we'll be spending on it, and you can also see what's assessed. Now you will be able to see that it's got course specialist, technical principles, design and making. This is obviously same as the theory, the exam, so you can see a pattern. So they want you to show that you have a broad understanding of different material areas. They also want to know that you have got specialist knowledge of the timber-based materials, but also you can demonstrate those design and making principles. Now the actual coursework, the AQA, the exam board, will give you a couple of different contexts, and you will start by researching them and then sort of just thinking about the sort of project that you could do, product that you could make, and then once you've decided on the context you would like to do, you will start to sort of go through that design and make process. Now the contexts are released by AQA on the 1st of June of your year 10. So we'll do the series of mini projects, and then towards the end of year 10 we will start your NEA. So you can read this. I'm not going to go through every single step. It's just the different stages, and obviously the marking criteria is linked to these different stages. When we start your NEA, I will kind of go through it, and actually as you've done your mini projects, so you will understand what each section means, and then when you come to do your NEA, you can kind of put all that knowledge together. Okay, so here's some examples of some coursework, the actual making that students have done over the last couple of years. You can see the variety. You don't have to make these sort of projects. The idea is that you will go through kind of an iterative process using your research, your client, the context obviously that you've been given, and you will come up with some sort of design solution. You can see here, this is a store, so there's a couple of stores, there's also one here. The idea, whatever product you decide to do, you need to show a variety of techniques using different materials, hardwood, softwood, man-made boards. You might also want to include some acrylic, for example, so polymers. You might want to have some pewter casting, so there's an inlay of pewter casting on the middle, the chair in the middle. There's pewter casting. The numbers on this wall hanging have been pewter cast. There's also some sort of inlay, pewter inlay on the tree design. You can see this is, using different hand tools, inlay. You've got your veneer bending to get your shape. You've got your different wood joints. There's mortise and tenon in some of these. There's finger joints. There are miter joints. There's even some electronics if you wanted to. Doesn't mean you have to. These are just giving you examples of the sort of techniques that you could include. So this the stool top for here, the seat, was actually using reclaimed wood from an old pallet. Some metal work on here. So obviously all these projects have been inspired by the context that they've chosen. Some of these were sort of for children, some of them were linked to different cultures. But again, in September, I will go through this in a little bit more detail. This is just to give you an overview. This was a box, a jewellery box, with jewellery, using different techniques to produce different pieces of jewellery. Obviously, we've got games, and again, some more seating. Okay, so I have sort of touched on the exam. The exam you will be doing at the end of year 11. It's one exam. It's a 2-hour exam. It's 50% of your coursework. Of your GCSE. Your coursework is the other 50%, and it's worth 100 marks. So your GCSE is made up of 50% coursework, 50% exam. Both are worth 100 marks each. You can also see that the exam, using that course specialist and then design and make principles, so it's the same structure as the theory we're going to be learning. It's the same sort of structure as sort of covering the knowledge in your coursework. But the exam is going to be made up of 3 sections. So you've got section A, section B, section C. Section A is multiple choice. It's worth 20 marks. It's looking at that, the core knowledge, the general knowledge of the material areas. Section B is your more specialist knowledge. So looking at your timber-based materials, and that's worth 30 marks. So section B is going to be sort of mostly short answers, but some longer answers where you'll need to give slightly more in-depth information, detail. And section C is worth 50 marks. So again, what you've done on your coursework is worth 50% of the GCSE, but the knowledge that you've gained, those skills that you've learned doing your coursework, you will also be applying, especially to section C of your exam, which is worth sort of 50 marks, 50% of the exam. Now there will be a mixture of short answers and also more extended sort of response questions, but we will be preparing you really, really well for your exam, sort of throughout the 2-year course, learning the theory, applying the theory, having those end of term tests, your mock, also your coursework will prepare you for your exam. And then when we finish your coursework, probably about March time, year 11, all the time after that will be past papers, preparation for your exam, ready for the end of year 11. Okay, so on, I don't know if any of you used Seneca before, but this is a really good tool for revision. Certainly, you know, DT's on there, and I will give you the class code to join it. I have set some work, but this is sort of for you to do over the summer and ready for the return in September. So you've got quite a lot of time. Just work your way through it. It's really user-friendly. You can have it on your iPad or your phone, and the way that it works is it goes through sort of flashcards, and then there are little tests at the end of each sort of section that it's covered. So it's really, you know, if you're waiting in a queue, if you're on a bus, if you're in a car, it's really useful just to kind of be able to do a little bit of theory wherever you are. So join the group, log into Seneca, create your own account, which is really, really simple, and then join the class code. Okay, and you will see the assignments. I can also see what you've done. So just as an example, there are already 2 students that have joined, and in total, the amount of study that those 2 students have done, I think it's mostly one of them so far, is 6 hours and 10 minutes. And I can actually go in and see what you've done and, you know, what sessions you've completed. So it's really useful from my point of view as well. Okay, there's also a classroom in Google Classroom that I set up, or a class in Google Classroom that I set up. It's 10A//RM. The class code is here. I'm pretty sure I've shared the class code with you on Show My Homework as well. So have a go at logging into Google Classroom if you haven't already. You will need to do this ready for September for all your subjects. But yeah, join our class. Okay, there's a couple of other websites that are going to be really, really useful. You might want to look through them at some point between now and September, but certainly come September, you definitely will be, you know, using these. They'll also be extremely helpful for your revision for your exam at the end of year 11 as well. So there's BBC Bite Size and also Technology Student. Now, if you have got any questions, you can email me, you can message me on Show My Homework, you can message me through our class in Google Classroom. All right, so even if you haven't got any questions now, but maybe you look at Seneca or you start thinking about it and you have some questions, just email me anytime and I will get back to you as soon as I can.